Hello and welcome to Sunday. This is actually my second reading because I was about 10 minutes in and Mr. Memphis came in here and decided that he was going to chew on the cord. And he's got a lot of heft, so he was able to grab the cord and just start walking. So, like, everything went over. Yeah. So, yeah. I thought this stand was really, really good, but I guess if they're very motivated, then there you go. So, anyway, round two, here we go. Welcome to Sunday, and I'm going to read just a little bit from the end of chapter 10, and then finish, and then we're into chapter 11. I'm good too, I assured her. Then I heard the sounds of voices and the clomping of feet on the stairs. We were about to have more visitors. Make sure this is plugged all the way in. Yes, okay. Chapter 11 Seek and Find. Once again, Otug was talking loudly to make sure we knew they were coming. This new team didn't seem to care about his story any more than the last one had. He told them about the rope and the lantern, as well as the fact that there were already two teams on the job. That's not a problem, a familiar sounding voice said. We'll clean them up too. Stick around. We'll be done in a minute. In a moment. Annabeth and I exchanged looks. I know that voice, she said. Me too, I agreed, but from where? She just shrugged. We'd find out soon enough. Otug peered down through the opening first. Ah, I see you are still doing well, he said with a relieved smile. I felt touched as he seemed genuinely happy to see us. A face popped up beside him, a very familiar face surrounded by frizzy hair. Well, look who it is, he exclaimed. It's the house team. I was hoping we'd run into you. Frizzy, I exclaimed back, like we were old friends. The last time I saw you, you were getting some sense slapped into you. Did it stick, or do you need another round of therapy? I tried to sound all concerned and hopeful in a sarcastic kind of way. You little house shit, he growled. I'm going to stick my sword up your ass and break it off. Sounds like he needs more therapy, I said to Annabeth in mock sympathy. I started rubbing my hands together vigorously. Whenever you're ready, just come on down and we'll get your session started, I said to him. I'm going to need you to bend over, though. Slapping your face obviously didn't work, so I'm going to try a more intelligent part of your anatomy. That set Frizzy off and he started cussing up a blue streak. Oteg was still there, and he looked very concerned as the new team threw the rope through the hole and started climbing down. There aren't any more rats, so you know we're going to have to fight them this time, Annabeth said quietly. I nodded. Wait until they're all down, and then hit them hard and fast, I directed. I had a few seconds, so I checked out their team name, Bear Hunters, and their path, Path of the Giant Shredding Claw. What do you think their path does? Annabeth asked. It sounds like they just made it up, I replied softly. Giant Shredding Claw? Surely that isn't real. After all, anybody can make up a path name. These guys were in the back of the line with us. I don't see how they can have any real power. I think it sounds made up too, Annabeth replied, but don't get cocky. Let's get through this without any injuries. Agreed, I said, and that's all the time we had to strategize as the whole team had made it down the rope. Frizzy was still cussing, but he did the smart thing and didn't charge us on his own. Instead, he started summoning a magic sword. Actually, the other three people on his team were summoning swords too. They should have called their team Four of Clubs, though, as none of their swords looked that great. Frizzy had a big mouth, and he was certainly the most passionate of the bunch, but he wasn't the best fighter. The other three were battle ready, while he was still trying to get his weapon together. Basher, you're up, I told him. Find out if these guys have shields. My basher flew over and easily passed over their heads. They don't have shields, I whispered to Annabeth as Frizzy finally got his sword together. I was really tempted to take these guys out like we were in the sand arena on our beach. That would have been downright fun. but there was always a chance they could surprise us, so I did the responsible thing and went for the easy kill. "Lights," I said, and threw my arms over my face. Annabeth was a split second behind me. Then I turned my 4 flashers loose, and they lit the place up like it was the surface of the sun. They just did a pulse. No sense in wasting magic, but it was bright enough I could see the bones in my arms. I'd seen this before, but it was so cool and never got old. Team Bear Hunters had no idea this was coming, so when I lowered my arms and opened my eyes, they were effectively blind. The team was stunned as tears started streaming down their faces. Then the realization that this was not going to go well for them hit home, and they tried to stumble away. The only thing left to do was to punch their ticket home, and that's what we did. Annabeth didn't even bother summoning a weapon. She didn't need to, as her punches were just as strong as mine. I stuck to body blows, as I didn't want to actually kill them for real. Even Frizzy didn't deserve that. Bones crunched, mages popped, and a few seconds later, we were again the only team on the floor. I must admit, that did a lot for my confidence. It felt good to knock a fresh team out of the tournament, even if they were low in the power rating like us. I looked around to see if they dropped any pearls, but it didn't look like it. I guess this was their first quest? If so, they had been very unlucky. I didn't feel too bad for them, though. They'd been willing to kick us out of the tournament and take our rat tails after all. The other members of the Bear Hunters hadn't been as mouthy as Frizzy, but they'd all gone along with what he wanted. "Otug," I called, "are you up there?" I heard the cautious shuffle of feet, and finally Otug peered through the opening. "I'm here," he called down. "Are you both okay?" What was that? "It was just a bit of light," I said soothingly. "Nothing to worry about." It suddenly occurred to me that some of what he was storing was light sensitive. Hopefully I hadn't ruined anything. I needed to keep this conversation going about other things before he thought too long about that. "Just so you know, we finished your quest, and we also cleared out all the rats. Even the Rat King." I gestured at the tail on the ground that was much bigger than the others. "You did?" Otug looked around like he couldn't believe his eyes. "You killed all of them? Just the 2 of you?" "It wasn't just us," Annabeth chimed in. "We had some help from the Fists of the Desert. That was the first team you brought down after us. We gave them some motivation, and they really came through for us." Otug stared at Annabeth like he was seeing my sweet, tiny partner in a whole new light. "So what do we do with all these rat tails?" I asked. "Do we throw them up there to you, or are you coming down to count them?" "Oh, nothing like that," Oteg replied. "You just need to tap them with your stamp. The bank will keep a running tally and inform both of us how much you've earned." "That sounds easy enough," I said, and leaned down to tap a nearby tail. As soon as I did, it disappeared with a pop. That was actually pretty fun. So I popped another one. Annabeth got into it too, and soon we were both going around the floor popping tails. It sort of felt like I was popping bubble wrap, as it was mindless, fun, and not dangerous at all. I was actually a bit disappointed when all the tails had been accounted for. While we were moving around, I noticed something I'd missed before. There was a small gray ball of magic, about the size of a marble, that was near the spot where the Rat King had fallen. At first, I thought it was a really big pearl, but then my mark of the deep earth perked up, and I realized there was a small stone in the middle. Real pearls are formed when a piece of sand gets into an oyster. Somehow it coats the grain in layer after layer of stuff until a pearl is formed. Maybe this was something like that? Or maybe this was the Rat King's core? I showed it to Annabeth, and she thought it was interesting, but she didn't know what it was either. We needed to get going, though, so I asked her to put it in the we needed to get going, though, so I asked her to put it in the pouch of pearls for later review. Since our work here was done, we both jumped up to the 6th floor for the last time. Otug looked shocked to see us leap like that, but he just pulled up the rope and picked up the lantern. Follow me upstairs and I'll give you your reward, he instructed. You have both done a wonderful job, and I'm thrilled at what you've been able to accomplish. Now, since we have some stairs to climb, you can tell me all about it. Annabeth gave him an abbreviated, light-hearted version of what had happened, and I chimed in with a few extra details. Otug seemed to enjoy the story, although he was walking up the stairs slower than I expected. A few times he winced and held his side, but when Annabeth inquired if he was okay, he just brushed it off as no big deal. She shot me a look behind his back like, "We are going to fix this," and I nodded in agreement. Once we got back to the main floor, we went to his office. When Annabeth saw little Inc, I thought she was going to summon the fist of the desert right there and kill him for real this time. She was furious. For that matter, I was too. Ink's face was bloody. His nose was bent at a strange angle, and he'd obviously been crying. I had heard him hit the wall downstairs, but it looked like someone had punched him a few times too. They punched him hard. "I'm telling you right now, Jason," Annabeth said with pure rage in her voice, "if I see any of the fists at the palace, I'm going to challenge them to a duel, and then I'm going to hurt them. I'm going to hurt them badly." I nodded in agreement and let her have her rage. I made a silent vow to myself, though. If I saw them first, they were mine. Ank seemed so happy to see us, and he ran to Annabeth and hugged her tight. She wrapped her arms around him, and Grandma hugged him right back. It was a hallmark moment, except for the fact that we were still covered in blood and rat bits and looked like monsters ourselves. We were done with the vanquishing portion of the quest, so I needed to get cleaned up. I'm sure Otug would appreciate me not messing up his office, and we needed to look a lot better than this before we were back on the streets again. I was putting out a serial killer vibe at the moment, and nobody wants to be around that. I got in touch with my freshness fountain and looked through the options. There was a quick refresh that not only took care of me, it also took care of my clothes. I spent the magic and let it do its thing. When it was done, I felt a lot better, and I wasn't covered in blood anymore, but my clothes still looked rough. It looked like I'd just come from a Jeffrey Dahmer tie-dye convention. At least I didn't smell, and my clothes were dry. "Annabeth, you're getting the boy all dirty," I said gently. "Oh, my goodness, you're right," she exclaimed and tried to brush him off, which just smeared the blood and made it look worse. "I used my freshness fountain to get clean," I told her. "Well, cleaner at least. Do you have an option that will work for your clothes with your freshness charm?" She shook her head. "I just have the most basic charm. It only takes care of toiletries, and it won't do anything with what I'm wearing." I sighed and went back to my fancy freshness fountain. Sure enough, it had a quick refresh option that I could use for someone else. I sent my bank crystal a quick thought of gratitude. It had hooked me up. "Before you leave here, I need to speak with you," my bank crystal told me. "It's not urgent, so finish conducting your business for this quest. I think you will find it helpful, though." "Of course," I replied. "I'll check back in a few minutes." I gave Annabeth the cleanup special, and soon she was wearing Jeffrey Dahmer tie-dye clothes, too. I joked that we'd worn matching outfits, and everybody laughed. Otug looked like he was going to get down to business, but Annabeth beat him to it. "Before we get into collecting our rewards and paying our debts, we first need to take care of healing," she announced. "Jason, if you would, please." She gestured to Inc. He looked up at me hopefully as I took his small hands in mine. "Inc, do you swear to open yourself to being healed? Will you allow me to see, touch, and modify your body to make it whole again? Do you fully accept my gifts and my magic so long as they do you no harm?" "Sure," he said instantly. Then he paused. "Will I shake like Papa did?" "Maybe," I replied truthfully. "Good!" he exclaimed. "I hope I shake a lot." He gave me an eager smile, exposing his crooked teeth. "I'm sure you will, dear," Annabeth said fondly, while she discreetly caught my eye and pointed to her mouth. You'll do just fine, Inc, Oteg said, as he also discreetly caught my eye and pointed at the boy's mouth. I almost laughed and gave it away, but instead I nodded at both of them to let them know I'd got their message and it had been received loud and clear. I was going to heal all of Inc. Not just his face, so I went with 6 ints again. They mapped out his body and then laid down their healing spores. This time I was extra careful how much magic I put in him. He was just a boy after all, not a big man like his father. Once again the spores puffed up like popcorn, but this time I was ready. I regulated my flow, and at no point did I think he was going to blow up. It took less than a minute before his nose was straight, his black eyes were back to normal, and his janky teeth were straight enough to model toothpaste. He had a skeleton and a gem core, just like his papa, which made me wonder exactly how all this worked. Were these people really apparitions? How did they have sex? Was Hank growing up like a normal kid? Once again, the mark of the deep earth connected with his gem core and polished it all up. Annabeth shook like he'd stuck his finger in a light socket, which I'm sure was going to make him very happy. When I was done, I ran a quick cleanup on him too. It got the blood off his face and mostly out of his clothes, and he looked much better. Wow, he touched his face. Wow, wow, wow. Then he gave me a big hug, which I must admit warmed my heart. Then he started skipping around the office yelling, wow, wow. Oteg turned him loose in the warehouse to run around and burn off some of that youthful energy before he turned to us. Once again, Annabeth beat him to it. You're getting healed too, she stated firmly. He tried to protest and be all manly, but she was having none of it. Otug, I said, do you swear to open yourself to being healed? Will you allow me to see, touch, and modify your body to make it whole again? Do you fully accept my gifts and my magic, so long as they do you no harm? I do, he sighed, resigning himself to Annabeth's wishes. Despite his reluctance and his protests that he was fine, he still eagerly reached for my hands. I think he was hurting even more than I thought. This time I used 10 ints, and when I was done, he looked like a younger man. His beer belly was gone, and he looked toned and healthy. He didn't shake very much, though, which left me a little disappointed. I wanted him to have the full healing experience. He was thrilled with the result, and then although he didn't run around his office yelling, wow, wow, his face said it all. When Hank told me what had happened to his papa, I just figured he was exaggerating, Otug explained. I had no idea this was even possible. I am deeply honored and deeply grateful that you would spend your magic on my humble self. He swept into a deep bow, and I think he would have knelt down too, but I hurriedly assured him that was not necessary. Should you ever pass this way again, just know that I am your humble servant, he said. My house is yours, my strength is yours, any help that I can provide is yours. You have but to ask. He would have said more, but he pulled himself together and got back to business. The best thing I can do for you right now is send you on your way. To that end, you have collected 76 rat tails, so I need to issue payment. Your first 10 rat tails are at the special rate of 2 pearls per tail. Since I am kind, generous, and oh so good looking, the next 66 tails are at the special rate of 3 pearls per tail. That brings us to a total of 198 pearls. Since you wiped out the entire nest, including the king, you also get the 200 pearl bonus. So your total is 398 pearls. Correct? We agreed, and he pulled out a metal box and opened it. Inside were several hundred pearls, all different colors and saturations. It was interesting seeing a collection like this, as Renee was right. Most of the colors were from the warmer side of the spectrum. There weren't that many blue or green pearls, and the ones that weren't my gem tones. There were lots of pink and oranges, though, so we picked out as many of them as we could. They would be useful to Sandy and Annabeth at least. After that, we went for anything that looked gray or sky blue for John or Tyler. I didn't want to consume our rewards, but it was always nice to have options. I picked out a few that were close to emerald and sapphire, and the rest of them we just picked out at random. Anne came back to the office to help us sort through the pearls, and when we were done, Annabeth handed him his agreed-upon fee. "Here are your 3 pearls," Annabeth said to the boy, "and here are 3 more. We appreciate how much you've helped us so far, and we still have more to do." "Thank you, Lady Adventure," Hank said, trying to sound businesslike. Then he gave a happy whoop and gave her a big hug. "What? No hug for me?" I said in mock outrage. "You're good too," he assured me seriously as I got a hug of my own. I just laughed and hugged him back. Then he went back to Annabeth. Clearly, she was his favorite. "Before you leave, you remember where the Adventurers Hall is, correct?" Otug gave me a serious look. We assured him we did. Why was everyone making sure we knew about the hall? Otug didn't say, he just gave us a look, like he was trying to tell us something, without telling us. Annabeth swept all the pearls into the pearl pouch, which made it rather bulky. Pearls are not very big, but we had a lot of them now, so they took up some space. The pouch still fit into Annabeth's pocket, though, so we were good to go. Otug opened up a hidden door in the back of the warehouse for discreet deliveries, and we were on our way. Once again, we all held hands, and Ank pulled us through the streets. The wind was starting to pick up, and the heavy storm clouds were rolling in. As we ran, my bank crystal tugged at my attention again. I didn't want to stop, so I split my focus between dodging around people and talking to my bank stamp. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I should have checked in sooner. How can I help?" "I was hoping this would be helpful for you," it replied. "I know you care about the rest of your crew, so I've created a view summarizing everything that has happened up to this point. Would you like me to send it to them?" "Oh my God, yes," I replied. "They are going to love it. Send it to me too. I want to review it later." "Very good," it replied, sounding a bit like a butler. "Just so you know, you normally need to tap stamps with the express purpose of exchanging contact information before you can send messages. However, I took the liberty of opening communications on the bus on the way here. I hope that is okay with you." "Yes, for sure," I said. "Thank you for thinking of all that. I doubt John or Tyler will notice they got a message, but Sandy might, and she can show them what we're up to." I sent it a quick feeling of gratitude and then focused on moving through the streets again. I'd come this far without a stamp, so sending magical messages didn't automatically come to mind. Fortunately, it was watching out for me. We moved even further away from the Adventurers Hall and into the nicer part of town. We weren't into the super rich estates, but these houses clearly had some money. Ank led us up to a lovely 4-story home with lots of character and knocked on the door. "In Diffie's," he yelled, "I got some adventures for you." Then he banged on the door again. Ank was a nice kid, but he didn't have a lot of patience. "In Diffie's," he yelled again, just as the door swung open. A stern-looking older woman glared down at him. "Hush, child," she scolded him. "You're going to get me in trouble with my neighbors." Then she glanced at us. "Welcome to my home. Please come inside." She led us down a short hallway and into her living room. There was an ornate couch, overflowing with pillows, and 2 ornate chairs, also with pillows. That was what I would have normally expected. What I wasn't expecting was for the place to be crammed full of tables, shelves, and curio cabinets with lots and lots of knickknacks artfully arranged on every surface. A kind person would describe the place as well decorated. Someone not so kind would say it was the nesting spot for a whole tribe of kleptomaniacs. "Can I get you some tea?" she inquired politely. "In Diffie's, they don't have time for tea," Ank exclaimed. "They're here for your quest, and you gotta hurry. The storm clouds are gathering." "Oh, And Diffie sounded disappointed. I get so few visitors, and it's nice to have a chat for a while. Ank was dancing from foot to foot, and he seemed ready to interrupt her again, so she quickly got to the point. I've lost a blue plate, and I'd love for you to find it for me. She gave us a hopeful look. I know that adventurers like to kill things or cast spells, big things like that, but sometimes the smaller things are useful too. I can't offer much, but if you can take some time to help me, I can give you a reward of 1 pearl. I looked at Annabeth in surprise. Papa Ank had said she had one of the best quests in the city. This didn't sound like that. 1 pearl was nothing compared to what we'd collected so far. Papa says you have to help them, Ank urged. They are good adventurers. They healed Papa and everything, and they killed all the rats from Otug already, even the big nasty Rat King, and they defended their tails and took out the bad guys, and they also got a whole bunch of pearls, and they paid me for taking them through the mountain, and now they're here, and you gotta help them. Ank said all that as fast as he possibly could. I don't think he even took a breath. And Diffie's looked a little overwhelmed, so she held up a hand to stop him. If they can find the blue plate, then I might have more for them to do. They have to find the plate first, though. That's how I know they'll have the skills I need for the task. Oh, I realized what was going on here. I asked for a moment and pulled Annabeth to the side. 1 pearl? Annabeth sounded doubtful. I think we should trust Papa Ank and do this, but it still doesn't seem like a lot. I'm pretty sure it's a quest chain, I told her. That's where the quest giver asks for something simple. Then when you complete the easy task, they ask for something else that's a bit harder. Each time the reward goes up a bit. If I had to guess, all the quests are probably in this house, and they're probably all about finding things. If I'm right, this will be an easy way to complete a bunch of quests without having to run around to different locations. They may not pay as much individually, but together they should add up to a lot. So you think we should do this? Annabeth asked, and I nodded. I agree, she said. I trust Ank, and your logic sounds reasonable. I think we should split up, though, I said. I have my magic sight, so I'll find the items she needs. You spend time with her and get her talking. See if you can discover all the items she wants us to find. Then I can search for several things at once. Annabeth liked the plan, so she put on her best smile, and together we turned back to Indiffies and Ank. We accept your quest, she said. Now, tell us about this missing plate. The plate was baby blue, which didn't help me much, as my magic sight couldn't see colors unless the item was magical. So a regular blue plate and a regular red plate would look the same to me. I could easily see the size of the plate, though, and this one was about 8 inches wide. She also said it had little indentations on the edge that added a nice touch of interest. Why don't we go into the kitchen and prepare a spot of tea? Annabeth suggested, and started to lead Indiffies away. We'll let the boys stay here and search. Indiffies looked happy and ready to settle in for a nice chat, when Bermuda decided he had enough time in my throne room and popped out to stretch his legs. When Indiffies looked back and saw him, her eyes grew wide in horror. No, no, she explained. That's a cat. Cats are not allowed in this house. Oh, Annabeth said. Why not? Cats are a lovely addition to any household. They provide lots of love and companionship, and they are wonderful to have around. I'm surprised you don't already have a couple of your own. They also knock things over, and Diffie snapped. They do it just for fun, and often those things break. Look around you. Does it look like I have a cat in here? I looked around with fresh eyes at all the figurines, pictures, display plates, and knickknacks. This was a playful cat's paradise. I knew Bermuda liked to move things around to suit his taste, and if I left him alone for 10 minutes, I'm sure at least one item would get broken, and it would probably end up being a lot more than that. Bermuda gave a big stretch, and I knew I was in trouble. After he naps, he's full of energy and likes to chase things. This was totally the wrong environment for that. Why don't you both take Bermuda into the kitchen while I search? I suggested as tactfully as possible. And Diffie's looked like she wanted to throw us out of our house, but I guess the rules didn't allow it. Hurry up, and Diffie's told me sternly as Annabeth gathered up Bermuda in her arms and they started to leave again. Annabeth, I called after them, remember to seal the deal and confirm the quest. I tapped my wrist. She nodded. Inc, you're going to be my helper, I told him. Hold my hands and don't let me fall over. I can get dizzy when I scan too much. Inc seemed happy to be doing adventurous stuff as he held both my hands and made a show of planting his feet and standing firm. I gave him a smile before I closed my eyes and extended my senses. My magic sight is simply amazing. I can see all around me in a complete sphere for a range of 20 feet. I don't just see the outside of things, I can see inside them and through them. I call it my magic sight, but I can taste, touch, and smell everything too. I can even hear differences in materials as well, but all that input can get overwhelming. I leave my magic sight on, so I'm used to it, but it's not like I'm actively scanning my environment everywhere I go. I'm not that interested in the wiring or the insulation that runs through the walls, or the layers of dirt and gravel under my feet, or the support beams that run across the second floor to keep it aloft. Since I was on a seek and find mission, though, I pushed my awareness out and started scanning everything around me. I was glad Inc was holding on to me, as it was a lot. Like a lot. I felt like I was back in the stacks and piles again, searching for a magical artifact to bring to Biddy. I let my mind absorb what I was seeing, and there were several things that surprised me. The biggest one was that one of the curio cabinets was actually covering up a secret door. The door was painted over, so it hadn't been opened in a long time. Behind the door was a set of stairs leading down, and there was an entire floor of the house underneath us. The floor above us looked to contain a bedroom and a bathroom, and most importantly, there was a hidden cavity in the floor that contained a small box. Inside the box was a key. If I had to guess, the key opened the secret door, and our quest chain would lead us down to the secret floor below us. I felt a thrill of excitement. I'd always wanted to find hidden doors and discover secret rooms. This quest was looking up. For now, though, I needed to find a single plate with a unique edge, so I started shifting through all the objects in the room. I felt a bit like one of those books where you try to find Waldo. It's easy to look at a picture, and you know Waldo in his striped outfit is somewhere in the image, but there is so much going on, it takes a while to find him. I think you're trying to process too much, my analytical side spoke up. This is a lost plate, so it isn't going to be on display like all the other items. Instead, it's going to be under a cushion or tucked in some remote corner. Oh, duh. That made perfect sense. As soon as I narrowed my focus, the plate popped right out to me. It was on the floor behind a curio cabinet. It looked like it had fallen off a stand, rolled on the floor under a table, and then slid along the wall to end up in its final spot. No wonder Diffie's couldn't find it. I'd never thought a plate could roll like that. I opened my eyes and thought about letting Inc wiggle under the table and get the plate. He had so much energy, I was afraid he'd knock something over, so I carefully did it myself. Together, we triumphantly followed the voices to the kitchen and showed off our find. And Diffie's confirmed it was the missing plate, although she seemed very distracted by Bermuda. He was up on her kitchen counters, which was almost as crowded with knickknacks as the tables in the living room. He was having a wonderful time scooting items to the edge with his paw and then watching her freak out. She'd quickly put the item back, and Bermuda would look away like he didn't have a care. But as her attention wavered, he'd scoot something else. It was funny as hell, and he was having a wonderful time, so I could have watched them all day. Annabeth had already weaseled the next two items out of Diffie's, though, so we got our descriptions and headed off. The first thing we needed to find was a set of lost diamond earrings. We'd already found something in the living room, so I thought we'd go to the second floor and scan the bedroom. That's where I thought jewelry would normally be kept. It turned out I was right, and the earrings were trapped between the bed and the bed frame. Once again, I focused on all the unusual places for earrings, and I found them very quickly. The next item was a letter from her late husband, and that was much more difficult. The third floor of the house looked like it was used for her craft projects, scrapbooking by the look of it, and the fourth floor was more of a storage area. That's where we found the letter, in a box filled with his old clothes. I scanned the contents quickly, and it hinted that he'd put aside a large sum of money for them to travel in their older years. If I had to guess, this was the real start of the treasure hunt. We took the items to Indiffy's for 4 more pearls, which wasn't much, and she started to tell us her tragic tale. I think she would have enjoyed taking her time and telling us all about her husband and their time together, except a massive boom of thunder shook the house, and we all jumped. "The storm is here," Inc exclaimed. "You gotta hurry." Indiffy's looked upset, but Annabeth took her hand and gave her a sympathetic smile. "I know what it's like to lose a husband," she said kindly. "They're as irritating as a wet rooster when they're alive, but we sure do miss them when they're gone. Talking about them makes them live again, even if it's only for a moment." And Diffie's looked at Annabeth like she understood completely, as her hand trembled slightly. "Unfortunately, this is terrible timing, and we have to hurry along. I hate to ask this, but could you let us know what you really need us to find? I'm sure it's not an old letter or missing earrings." And Diffie sighed and nodded. "My husband was a bit of a wanderer in his youth, and somehow managed to find many valuable items. He sold a few, and because of that we've always had the money to do what we wanted. I've sold the last of the items I knew about, though, and now I'm starting to worry about how I'm going to live the rest of my life. You managed to find all my smaller items, so the main quest, should you choose to accept it, is to find any items of value my husband has hidden away. I'm afraid I can't pay you in pearls, but if you find an item you like, you are welcome to take it with you." She looked both sad and hopeful all at the same time. I'm sure it would be hard discovering something left behind by a person you loved and then having to sell it, but that was the position she was in at the moment. "I'm guessing you don't know about the hidden room?" I asked. She looked at me in confusion. "Or the box with the key in the floor upstairs?" "There's a hidden room?" she asked. "Yep," I replied. "Annabeth, seal the deal, and I'll get the key." Ank and I raced upstairs to her bedroom, pried up the floorboard, and retrieved the box with the key. "This is so cool!" Ank exclaimed. "Now we just gotta find the treasure." I got the impression he thought there was going to be chests of pirate booty overflowing with gold. I tried to tell him I was pretty sure it wasn't going to be like that at all, but he was already racing back to the kitchen. And Diffie said she'd never seen the box before, which was a good sign that we were on the right track. The box was locked, but it had a simple latch. I put my hand over the lock and flicked it with my magic. The box popped open. The key was heavy, at least a pound, and it was one of the old-fashioned kind, with a large ornate handle on one end and the tooth of the key on the other. I gave the key to Annabeth, the box to Indiffy's, and together we all headed into the living room. The secret door was behind a curio cabinet, and Indiffy started freaking out when we went to move it. Bermuda, being a cat, decided this would be a lovely time to jump up on a shelf and go for a ride. He actually did pretty well and only knocked a few things over, but Indiffy's freaked out even more. We moved it several feet from the wall and were just setting it down again when another clap of thunder shook the house. We were all on edge, and the unexpected noise made us jump. The cabinet shook, and most of the collectibles fell over. Annabeth flexed her magic, though, and nothing broke. Now the ride was over, Bermuda jumped down, knocking over some of the few knickknacks that were still standing. If we hadn't been right there, I think Indiffy's would have murdered him. Bermuda just put his tail high in the air and managed to look both unconcerned and smug all at the same time. Deep breaths, Annabeth instructed in Diffie's. Take deep breaths. It's all going to be okay. Annabeth and Indiffies already had a rapport, so I let Annabeth do what she did best while I focused on the hidden door. It obviously hadn't been opened in a very long time. It had been painted over, wallpapered over that, and then painted over again. Are you sure there's a door here? Ank asked doubtfully. If I hadn't been using my magic sight, I'd have doubted myself too. There wasn't even an outline of a door or a dent for the keyhole. I'm sure, I replied and got to work. I ran my hand over the edge of the door, using my magic to cut through the paint and the wallpaper. It felt a little strange to be working like this. I usually use my soul creations to do what was needed. For a very simple thing like this, where I could touch what I needed to affect, it was faster to use my magic directly. Once I got the outline cut out, I started working on the keyhole. Some idiot in the past had filled it with some sort of spackle. I guess they'd figured it was a weird hole in the wall and had patched it up. Regardless, it had to go. So I ripped away the paint and the wallpaper and cleared out all the filling. After that, I stepped back and let Annabeth have her moment. She popped the heavy metal key in the lock and turned it. I was surprised how easily it turned, but the door still didn't want to open. Now the key was in the lock. It acted like a doorknob, so Annabeth had a pretty good grip to yank on the door. It shifted a tiny bit, but it wouldn't open. So I went around the outside of it again, flexing my magic to help get it unstuck. Annabeth kept tugging, and suddenly the door came loose. Annabeth might be small, but she was strong, and she ripped the door out of the wall, hinges and all. You're getting your Hulk on, I teased her. First you're tearing up Sandy's walls with salt shakers, and now you're ripping doors apart. I'm going to have to tell John to start being careful of you. You don't know your own strength. I hadn't been there for the salt incident, as that had all happened before I had showed up at the house, but I'd heard the tales so often I felt like I'd seen the whole thing. John loved to tell the story and do his whole Annabeth caveman Hulk impression. It was funny as hell, especially after we'd had a few pints of his ale. I don't think John needs any more Hulk stories, Annabeth said primly as she laid the door on the floor. Besides, the wood was old and so were the hinges. It's a miracle the thing stayed together as much as it did. And Diffie's looked like she was going to pass out as we destroyed her home. Annabeth gave her a comforting pat. Jason, why don't you light the way so that we can see what we've discovered? I quickly directed my flashers to fly ahead of us and gently illuminate the stairs and the new floor. Bermuda was fearless and curious, like all young cats are, so he took the lead and scampered down the steps. The rest of us followed closely behind. It felt like we discovered something from a movie, like National Treasure or the Da Vinci Code. There were maps everywhere, pinned to the walls and scattered on the tables. Some of them were beautiful with exact lines and lovely illustrations. Some were obviously hand-drawn and had seen a lot of wear and tear. In addition to the maps, there were models that seemed built to scale, with notes pinned to various parts. One table seemed to have this entire underground cave system, with models of monsters scattered throughout. It was almost like someone had set up an entire Dungeons and Dragons role-playing set. Parts of the model were just blank, like they hadn't been discovered yet. The space was fascinating, and I could have spent hours looking over it all, but it was easy to find the treasure we'd come for. There were stacks of stasis cubes with items inside them. Some of them contained simple items that looked very old, but some of them preserved paintings and other works of art. I'm not an art connoisseur, so I have no idea the value of what I was looking at, but these items were being preserved for a reason. And Diffie's gasped and ran over to one of the stacks. There was a light layer of dust, much less than I'd expected for a hidden place like this, and it was easy for her to wipe off and see what was inside. She started crying, and but they seemed to be happy tears. I guess she wasn't mad at us for destroying her wall anymore. The sounds of thunder rolled over us again, and suddenly a voice emanated from the walls. Citizens of the realm, it is once again necessary that we cleanse the city. The voice was deep, commanding, and firm. Please go immediately to your home or the nearest city structure and lock yourself inside. For those adventurers that are visiting our fine city, you have 2 minutes to exit any dwelling. Any adventurer that remains indoors will be trapped behind the wards and automatically purged. Once the wards have been established, adventurers will have 20 minutes before the cleanse begins. You should gather your belongings and head directly to the exit portal. I sincerely regret the abruptness of your departure, and I hope your time with us has been both productive and profitable. Remember us fondly, and I look forward to having you visit us again. Everyone, your 2 minutes begins now. Annabeth looked at each other, and I looked at each other in shock, but Ankin and Diffies didn't seem surprised at all. I'm so sorry, I wasn't allowed to tell you, Ank said anxiously. That's okay, I said. I figured there had to be something that happened at some point to bring this first round of the tournament to a close. I just wasn't expecting anything like this, though. I turned to Annabeth. We gotta get out of here. The end game has started, and I don't think I want to get trapped here and automatically eliminated. For sure, she agreed, but not before we pick out our reward. She looked around at all the tables and stasis cubes. Although I have no idea what we should choose. Do you see anything of value? Does anything of value stand out to you? I looked around again, and my natural sight was overwhelmed by everything here. My magical sight saw a familiar glow of magic, though. It was faint, but it was there. I'm going to assume that magical items are worth more than mundane ones, I said, so let's take a look at this. I hurried over to the farthest wall, which was the only one that wasn't covered in maps. Instead, it contained rows of hooks, from which hung a whole array of gear for camping and exploring. There were backpacks, blankets, canteens, cooking utensils, shovels, and pickaxes, to name a few. 3 of these items glowed with power, and I pointed them out to Annabeth. That pickaxe is magical, I told her, as well as the copper-looking compass and the white rope. I have no idea what any of them do, but the compass seems to have the most power. Let's go with the rope, Annabeth said immediately and picked it up. It seemed smooth, about as big around as my finger, and both ends were capped with small metal knobs. It wasn't very long, about 50 feet, but it seemed like a sturdy piece of rope that wasn't very heavy. Why the rope? I asked, surprised. The pickaxe probably just has something to make it dig better, so I can see passing over that. The compass is smaller, though, and it might do something neat like always pointing towards treasure or whatever we're looking for. Annabeth shook her head. The rope wants to go with us. It has had its fill of hanging on the wall, and it's ready for adventure. Besides, having a rope could be very useful. The rope is talking to you? I asked in surprise. Penny and Eggy were charms, and they talked to me, but they were awake and aware. The rope seemed nice, but it didn't feel like it was at their level. Yep, Annabeth replied, like that made all the sense in the world. Then the rope wrapped itself around her waist several times and then looped into a knot at the front. Annabeth laughed delightedly and gave it an affectionate pat. See, she said brightly, it's all ready to go. Annabeth had clearly made up her mind, and I trusted her judgment, so the matter was settled. We were taking the magic rope. We had less than 2 minutes to pick something anyway, so Annabeth having a clear preference was a blessing. The voice was calling out the time, and we had 55 seconds left, so we hurried back to Ank and pulled him into a group hug. I'm going to miss you, he said as his voice quavered. Annabeth kissed him on the cheek and gave him another squeeze. I think she was having an emotional moment too, but there wasn't time to linger. Be good, Ank, Annabeth said in parting. Don't be too good, I added playfully. Then we raced up the stairs. We were almost at the front door when I realized Bermuda wasn't with us. I swore, turned around, and dashed back down the stairs again. Maybe he would have been okay. He was a companion, after all. Or maybe he wouldn't. I wasn't about to lose my fur baby. Bermuda was sitting on the model of the cave system, his back leg in the air, licking his private parts without a care in the world. He gave me a very indignant look as I swept him up in my arms and raced out of the house. We made it with 10 seconds to spare. My flashers! They weren't the fastest flyers, so I sent my surfer dudes after them. Ank and Diffies would be left in the dark, but there was light coming down the stairs, so they would be able to find their way out just fine. It wasn't until my flashers arrived that I realized how dark it was on the street. The sky was completely covered in thick black clouds, and it felt like it was the middle of the night. The 2-minute sorting time is over, and the wards are now in effect. The voice, which I assumed was the king, spoke again. I felt a powerful magic snap into place, and all the houses on the street were now covered in milky white force shields. The cleanse will begin in 20 minutes. Adventurers, you have until then to pass through your portal and go home. Good luck. And this ends our chapter. I hope you all had a wonderful Sunday. I will see you in a fortnight, and we will hit chapter 12, which is titled Footlong. All right. See you guys then. Bye.